Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 1 of the Holistic Path, brought to you by Clovers Natural Market and Feel Well with Fee Health Coaching. We are so excited to begin this journey with you today. Our mission is to go beyond the supplement shelf, the TikTok trends, the quick fix cure-alls that are so common in our industry, and to really dig into what's behind some of the leading health concerns of our time, using our collective knowledge of herbalism, supplements, nutrition, and mindful living practices. Please note that we are not doctors, and nothing that we say today is meant to diagnose, treat, or prevent any disease. We are health educators, herbalists, and enthusiasts. We're not here to cure disease, but to help enable life through mindful living practices. So before we begin, just want to take a second to introduce our crew here, these wonderful ladies. I'm Laura McGuire. I have been studying herbs for over a decade. My love of herbalism began just with my love of being outside and loving to go for hikes in the woods. And the further I got away from my car and the further I got away from civilization, the more I wondered who was out there growing alongside me that could help give me some relief from different ailments. So I started just self-teaching myself, growing herbs and using them and making herbal medicines. And then I formalized that study at Very Wise Herb School in Kansas City. I did a 3-year clinical herbalism program in 2020. I'm really excited to bring my love of plants to this YouTube series. I think there's a lot of benefit that we can get from our plant friends. Without further ado, we'll have Nellie introduce.
Hi, I'm Nellie Nash, and I grew up in the woods in Montauk County. So I have a childhood where my parents were part of a macrobiotic community. We had, for 7 years, no running water or electricity. We had a pitcher pump and an outhouse, and we had plant medicine and medicine straight from the earth. You get a wasp sting, you put mud on it type of deal. So I have that sort of childhood history. And then I went to college and ended up having some health ailments that the medical community wasn't really able to help me with. I stumbled on some information that took me back sort of to my roots, and I was able to get healthy. After college, I managed Vitamin World for 8 years and then started at Clovers in 2005. And so it's been 19 years at Clovers, and my passion is empowering people to feel like they have control over their health, to be curious, to interact with their healthcare providers in a way where they feel like they have some say and agency. And sometimes that involves alternative remedies, mindfulness. I just love being on the floor and helping people who arrive. So I'm here to contribute to the conversation and hopefully reach some people.
Hello all, I am Fee. I am a health and wellness coach. I grew up in the city of Detroit, but ultimately my path has led me to a more holistic lifestyle through my own ailments, and similarly just not finding resolve in the medical world. I grew up in the inner city. Anytime anything is wrong, you're going to go to the doctor. Really didn't have any knowledge of the power of plants and holistic alternatives. But after years of my own health scares and listening to my body, but voicing those concerns to doctors who didn't really understand what I was experiencing, moving to Missouri with my family to kind of slow things down and get a taste of something different. And I discovered Clovers Natural Market, and I had already been reading a few books just about herbs and was interested, and they had this range of natural supplements. And out of curiosity, tried my own blend of teas, and from that grew a desire to want to empower others to advocate for themselves and to bet on themselves and trust themselves about what's best for their health. It's much more empowering to show someone how to do something instead of just do it for them or provide them with the Band-Aid. Teach them how, and that's something that they can pass on to others. So I hope to empower others to be enthusiastic about the world of health and understand that health is more than just band-aids and Tylenol. And in our everyday life, we can take small steps that have big impacts on the way that we live and making sure that we live long, vital, healthy lives.
Love that.
Yeah.
Small steps, big impact.
Yes. I'm so excited to be sitting here with the two of you and to begin this process of recording our conversations, because that really is a big inspiration for what we're doing here, which is when we get together and talk, there's just a magic to it. We're also enthusiastic about this topic, which is holistic health.
Don't get their hopes up. We might be really boring.
We're going to have fun.
We think we're enthusiastic.
Maybe you'll think so too, and that we're so excited if that happens, if we are able to reach some people. I think just another inspiration for me is working at Clovers, and there's only so much time you have with customers who come in who have, they're going through a lot. They have a huge health issue, and they're looking for something that can help them. And so often there's one or two things that we can point out that might be helpful, but really wanting to slow that conversation down, peel back some layers, go a little deeper, because there is usually no quick fix, but there's so many ways to work to restore balance in an imbalanced situation, whatever it might be. So that's what we're hoping to do here for this first episode. It is back to school time. The leaves are starting to turn. There's a hustle and bustle and an energy of like the year is ending. And a big topic for back to school is mental health. Not only are we talking about mental health of children, but educators as well. Kids, we think about ADHD, anxiety, depression, behavioral problems. These are some of the most commonly reported mental health issues. Youth today, and they're only growing. These incidents of these are only rising. And this has an impact also on educators who are having to navigate and deal with these complex situations and also are facing burnout. And let's face it, for a lot of kids, the source of their anxiety, the source of their depression, the area where their behavioral problems are really coming out in a more pronounced way is school. School is a non-negotiable, or some sort of education is non-negotiable. But we're kind of wanting to dive into that topic today.
I was struck with just this idea of talking about mental health, but also like this connection between cognitive health, the reason we go to school, other than developing a social, ethical human to participate in groups and a community, is to develop our cognitive abilities and learn information. And this idea that, like, you go, you learn stuff, you graduate from that class, you get smarter, you learn more stuff, and that cognitive health and mental health, mental emotional health, are so connected. And broadening the conversation about mental health and how cognition affects that, and how emotional mental health affects how we learn, how we think, respond to our environment in learning. We go to this thing to have this cognitive experience, and we have this whole health around it. That when we were in school, you either did special ed or you didn't, and there was no talk about the nuances of learning and psycho-emotional health.
Wholeheartedly, and I was just struck by that while you were speaking, Nellie. I was looking up the actual definition of cognition, and it defines cognition as the mental action or process of acquiring knowledge and understanding through thought, experience, and the senses. And I think that speaks to the importance of the abstract and the concrete, and how both of those experiences need to happen simultaneously for you to be able to emotionally regulate or identify anxiety, be aware of the anxiety. I feel like it's the first step to being able to help cope through anxiety, is to know that it exists. Yeah. And it exists even though it's not a tangible thing that you can touch. Your body does respond and tell you when you're anxious. And I think that if we start early with identifying those emotions and how it feels internally and externally, how to identify when that's coming, we can better find ways to have healthier conversations about it as an integral part of education or a school day.
Yeah.
Aside from just, physical ed and the sitting for this subject and the next subject, I think that it would be a great idea to integrate some kind of mental health education into those processes early on. A lot of us, we get that when we're middle school, high school, but by that time we've already processed and been overloaded with so much of the school complex experience that we don't really know how to identify. By that time, you're just trying to finish everything that you can to get through the day. Exactly. You're not taught to slow down. I think that everyone, including adults, could benefit from slowing things down.
Yeah, this is a topic that is really near and dear to my heart because I was such an anxious kid and socially anxious. I was a pretty smart kid, I think. I was really bookish. I was really quiet. I remember loving to read my science textbooks. I found it so fascinating, but being in class and being so anxious that I could not recall or focus. So if you have an anxious child, you have a child that's going through depression, which children do go through depression, or if you have, a child that is maybe fits into the category of neurodivergent, which there's all kinds of different things that qualify there were ADHD, autism, OCD, all this puts challenges on the learning experience. And even though there's growing awareness of these mental health issues and neurodivergence in school, still most classes aren't really set up to cater to kids who have these issues. And, when I was a kid, my parents were really well-meaning, but they did not know how to handle this anxious child who was, I remember signing up for a soccer team. And then when we got there, my mom was so mad at me because I looked out at the field full of kids and I said, no.
Changed my mind.
No, I can't go out there. I can't deal with these social situations. It was very overstimulating for me and I still have a little bit that in my personality to this day, although I've learned how to cope. But it would make my mom would feel pretty angry with me, and the response was just kind of get over it, kind of grow up and get over it. And let me just say that didn't help. I love you, Mom. That didn't help. I know you're gonna watch this, Mom. I love you. And what I think I really needed, like reflecting back on this so many years later, is someone to validate my feelings, maybe not amplify them, but validate them. And this is kind of one thing we're going to talk about today is taking your child's experience seriously. The goal should be that we're encouraging them to meet their fears while also not telling them that their fears don't matter, so that we can build resiliency. And then also accepting that neurodivergence is very common, and it does mean that some learning experiences, are going to be more challenging than others. But neurodivergent does not mean deficit.
I have a 22-year-old who went through the public school system, and I found that educators are doing a really good job of being aware of the needs of kids, particularly in the younger grades, and that they're often overburdened with large class sizes, with not enough aid. So I think there's also a lot of wonderful alternative school situations, which we'd love to hear from you educators of what you're doing, because there's outdoor schools and there's unschooling. We're talking broad spectrum of learning environments, a lot of already addressing these having to do with our child's ability to learn and ability to regulate their nervous system socially. And educators, school systems, people are really trying. They're really trying to do a really good job. But I do think the role of the parent as someone who validates what's going on with the child's nervous system when they leave the house and they're surrounded by noise and an input constantly. I think it's important that we send our kids out into the world with tools that we understand can help them. And I'm not talking about just like medicating your kids, although sometimes that's a tool. So I just want to preface that the school systems have come a long way. Public education has come a long way. Individual classroom environments have changed as parents, as educators, trying to empower ourselves.
So you get so much anxiety that basically kind of bottom out and you can't find the fire to keep going and you freeze a little bit. And that's
the depressed side.
Yeah, and you can see that in kids and adults who withdraw, just keep withdrawing and they don't show up. And then so many of the behavioral issues that we focus on, acting out, tantrums, these are actually symptoms often of anxiety underlying that. So really kind of tapping into that, the emotional needs of kids, and not just writing them off, and having a curiosity toward their experiences is just kind of foundational when we're talking about these things, because kids are very, very aware of the anxieties of adults, even though they don't understand them the way that we do. They feel them, and they also don't have a lot of control in their lives. They're just learning about this world for the first time. So a lot of their anxieties really mirror our anxieties that we have learned how to just push right down.
Yeah.
Or on the positive side, maybe have some resiliency skills, self-regulating skills. So that's also, teaching your child, your students, if you're an educator, how to handle anxiety by learning how to regulate it for yourself.
That it just speaks to the need of stress management for adults and children alike. It's often going to mirror what they see and not just what they hear. So while they can go to school and the educators, like you said, they are doing their best, they're also highly stressed. And a lot of them don't have healthy coping mechanisms or stress management strategies for when they have 30 kids that are all asking questions, and so I think life has changed a lot in that it moves a lot faster and there's not as much time as we would like to have to cater to self-care or downtime, but a little bit of time can be really impactful if you use it intentionally, right? So growing up, knew nothing about even how to identify what anxiety or depression was. So as I became a young adult, I just thought this was the norm. My body, my shoulders are up high, not breathing through my diaphragm. This is just the way that my body is, until I started doing my research and realizing, okay, these are kids' books, but there's so much information in these kids' books for me. A lot of us are anxious children trapped in just larger bodies. So if so if we treat it like we're seeing ourselves in these young people, because we're all the same, we're just trapped in it. And now there are more tools and resources to that, but we can still use them. It's not this is just for kids. So it taught me a lot about modeling the behaviors that you want to see in children. I think that's a responsibility of the community as a whole, right? On the educators, the teachers, but also on the parents at home. So that is why I'm so grateful for this space, and I hope that it can inspire educators, parents to not shun themselves or be hard on themselves for the things that they don't know, but use this little bit of insight as something to spark some curiosity of what we can do ourselves to empower the kid in us, so that we can be more kind to our children when they're having these experiences. It's just we didn't have tablets and computers and things. Like, a lot of the schoolwork is centered around those electronics, and that's an entire different conversation. But the amount of overload just from that, blue light, and the effects that all of these things have, right? The diet that they have at school, it's all interconnected. So if we take and pull apart one piece of that, teaching your child how to identify, okay, when my hands start to shake, maybe I am afraid of something, maybe I am nervous about something, and creating safe spaces for them to just talk about it. And like you said, having someone to identify, wow, that does sound scary. I'm not experiencing it, but this kid, I would want someone to tell me I'm going to be okay. This is going to pass. A lot of us, even adults, don't know that emotions are only meant to last a minute and a half's time. But we take and we zoom in on that fear.
It's a trick of the brain.
Understanding it is.
Yeah.
And you can't always talk yourself out of it, but again, identifying it. Okay, I see what's happening. I see that I'm ruminating about this, and I'm going to be okay. Just the power to get out of our brains and actually into the settings that we're in, bring ourselves back to center, I think is very, very powerful in the fact that you can't control you have 1,001 things that are on your mind, but there's only one of them that you can control in this moment. If we put more focus on that, it brings us back to center. Okay, I can start with one breath and breathe deeper. So I'm breathing, but you're not breathing deep. You can breathe deeper. It's okay to breathe deeper.
Good reminder.
And we're all experiencing it here. So it's just constant reminders. Just that one thought can trickle into awareness and all other facets that I like that I think will make stress management so much easier for parents and kids alike.
And part of what we talk about in this age of like too much information and everything's moving so fast is the positive of that is that we're on a collective evolutionary path that has so much to do with consciousness, awareness. It's deeper than mental capacity. It's all of this movement forward is also a journey of being grounded. More and more people are learning the skills, coming to center. And even though it needs to be sped up, I think it's a wonderful thing to be able to participate in a collective calming down through technology, through awareness of too much. It's just too much. Things are just like, whoop. So, Laura, you have some concrete things here.
So we'll go ahead and we'll jump into all these suggestions and ways that you can help support yourself or your child to find that center and to work through some things that are challenging. And I'm going to start with the herbs. So, the goal for what we can do with herbs really is going to be to support the nervous system. And that's really what I have to talk about today. Children who are experiencing a lot of hyperactivity and behavioral issues and anxiety, focusing on herbs that are going to be nervous system tonics and restoratives to help rebuild that emotional foundation. And there's a lot of beautiful herbs that could be used here. But I'm going to focus just on 3, keep it simple. They can be used together. They can be used on their own. And the first one I'm going to talk about is milky oats. So this is Avena sativa. This is the same plant that you make your oatmeal from in the morning. The milky oats, it's the seed at the beginning of the season, before it has flowered, before the seed has flowered, and it has if you squeeze it, it has this milky latex that comes out, and that is the milky oat, and that's what we're talking about.
So it's in its like an oat pod, but it's not dried. It's green.
It's not dried. It's green, and there's lots of benefits from oatmeal too. Oh my gosh, there's tons of B vitamins in there, the fiber. So oatmeal is great. There's also oat straw that you can get in like the bulk herb section at Clovers.
It's usually green also.
It's also green, and that is fantastic. It as just like a nutritive tea. But it is the milky oats. It's that latex, that sap that is in those green oat seeds that is, I think, one of the most amazing nervous system restorative herbs out there. And you really have to use those fresh seeds. You don't have to go and start growing oats and harvesting yourself. You can, it's a wonderful plant to grow too, but you can purchase milky oat tincture, which is what I would recommend and what I would gravitate toward for the ease of it. And tinctures are herbs that are extracted in alcohol. So I just want to put that out there, but that doesn't mean that they're not safe for kids. The amount of alcohol that you would get from a dose from that, it's less than what you'd get from eating a ripened banana. Typically for an adult, it's going to be like 40 drops is your standard dose. And you might want to cut that down for kids. It's going to be dependent on weight, and you can find some pretty good, if you Google herbal tincture dose by weight, you can find some good information on that. But milky oats is also fantastic because it's so gentle and safe and appropriate for children and adults. This is not, kind of a one and a done remedy. You're not just going to take some milky oat tincture and be like, well, there goes my anxiety forever.
The placebo is amazing. So if you tell your kid this is it, it's gonna work, who knows?
It might work, but
It's a foundational.
It's a foundational. It's consistency. So finding a way to do this every day, and you can put alcoholic tinctures don't taste that great, but you can put that in with another tea, maybe some of the other things I might mention today. You can put it, with a little apple juice. You can just mix it into water. Milky oats is incredible. So it really, when I think of the candidate for milky oats, I think of someone who is overwrought, who is frazzled. It really helps to restore that emotional foundation. So when everything is just too much, you're just on kind of heightened alert all the time.
Moms,
dads, and kids who have the whole universe at their fingertips, which is the internet, this amazing tool we're talking about. Or they're in a school and there's social pressures. They want to fit in and they need to figure out how to multiply. And they
extracurriculars and all the sports things.
Yeah.
League, full schedules.
Everything. It's a lot on anyone's nervous system. So this is great for chronic anxiety and chronic insomnia too. Again, it's not like it's not something you take right before bed and you're like, I'm going to pass out. But because it's helping to restore and rebuild the nervous system and we're helping to build that emotional foundation so that we can calm down. We can dial it back down. So milky oats, that's probably my number one place to start. So next up is one of my favorite herbs that I use all the time, and that's skullcap.
Oh, I love skullcap.
Oh,
one of my favorites also.
It comes in handy for so many things. So skullcap refers to any plant in the plant genus Scutellaria. There's a native skullcap that grows here, the Scutellaria incana. Typically, when you get skullcap on the shelves, it's going to be Scutellaria latifloria, but in my experience, the native skullcap does work too. So if you have that growing in your yard, that's great. I love skullcap for any stress that comes with fidgeting, tremors, hyperactivity, like a sensory overload. So think about when you can't focus because you can feel the fabric of your clothes, or the lights are too bright, or there's too much sound. Your skin feels sensitive, maybe it's tingling, like your nerves are actually overactivated. There's a kind of a feeling of like you're buzzing. That's when I think of skullcap. Hyperactive children who struggle with too much input. Our adults. This is me. There's a reason why I like skullcap. It helps you to filter things out so that you can focus on what needs to be prioritized. It actually has action on the thalamus in the body to help kind of filter that sensory input that's coming into the brain. It's really cool. It's a really cool plant. You can use it throughout the day in small doses, like 15 to 30 drops to help you relax and focus. If it's used closer to evening, you can do a larger amount, like 50 to 80 drops of the tincture, and that can help to improve quality. I also love skullcap for kids who struggle with sleep issues like night terrors or restless leg syndrome. Fia, I know you said that you use skullcap for
my restless. Works like a charm. It's not overstimulating. It just literally soothes and takes the edge off to where you can actually rest. If you've ever dealt with restless leg syndrome, you know that it is almost debilitating.
So apply that also to, if you have a kid who needs to fidget with something all the time, or maybe you've noticed has a stress-induced tic, which is really common, skullcap here. You can use this in a tea form, but I really do prefer the tincture made from fresh flowers for skullcap. I find that has a much more profound action than the dry tea. The last herb I'm going to talk about is one that should be pretty familiar, which is lemon balm, Melissa officinalis. What a fantastic herb. It tastes so good. It smells so good. Just the smell of lemon balm usually lifts my mood. And it is kind of specific for mild to moderate depression. And yes, kids do experience depression, and that needs attention and care. They do feel things very intensely. So lemon balm is just one of these great plants to help lift the spirits. It's also relaxing to the mind. So depression and anxiety often go side by side. So lemon balm is great for that. So if you have a very sensitive kid who's anxiety coupled with that on the other side, struggling to fit in, struggling to connect to the work that they're doing or to find kind of life energy for that, lemon balm is great for that.
So like uplift, a calming uplift.
A calming uplift. Double bonus is that it also helps to relieve gastrointestinal issues. So for a lot of people, these emotional issues, kids including, come along with gastrointestinal spasming or stomach upset, and lemon balm is relieving for that as well. So it's a great one to have in your arsenal. Works fantastic as a tea. Most kids like it because it tastes good. You can use a tincture too. Put these other herbs that are better in tincture into, and then you have a nice kind of nighttime, end of day, calming, restorative, but also tonic remedy for your child or for yourself if you're like, this is me, and this is me.
Check.